got your back. Invader incoming. You're ahead. Invader down. You can relax now.
Hold on, boys. This is going to be a long one. What does Destiny 2 need to do to try to climb the throne as the top multiplayer game on the market right now? I suggest that they regress. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. Who is this random guy with no subscribers stating that Bungie and its Destiny franchise needs to regress in order to advance? And I know that seems counterproductive and doesn't make much sense, but I hope you hear me out. Let me first start off by talking about my history with Destiny in order to help you understand my perspective. When I first saw the advertisements for Destiny 1, I didn't think it was really for me. I had no intention of buying the game or following its coverage. It seemed too much like an MMO for me, and from my experience, a lot of them lack variety and are very cookie cutter, which isn't really my style. However, I have a motto that if any game is free or is in beta or demo testing phase, I owe it to myself to try it. You never know if you can find any hidden gems out there, and I did that with Destiny. Now when I first got the alpha code, I waited for a bit. I wasn't really wanting to spend my time playing a game that I had no enthusiasm for, but there was a slow day and I decided to download it and give it a shot, and easily within the first mission on Earth, I don't want to say this, but I fell in love with the game. It's pretty cliche. As soon as I finished the really short campaign that was on Earth, I jumped into the Crucible, and I remember I instantly took a photo and sent it to some friends on Instagram and said, hey, if you're considering this game, you should look at it, and even if you weren't, you should look at it. It might open your eyes a bit. I know for a fact I was motivated to buy it as soon as it came out at day one of testing the alpha. I jumped on to the beta, played everything over again with some friends, and even was there for, I think it was the 1 or 2 hour moon release. And I enjoyed that too, and it got me pumped for the release of Destiny 1. Now, in summary, for my first year on Destiny, I easily put 1,000 to 2,000 hours. I would say it was somewhere north of 1,100, but I don't know for a fact, so I'd put in that 1K range, but 100% over 1,100. During that time, I was a Sherpa for many LFG groups, met a lot of good friends there that I've in turn met in person years later. I've had countless Year 1 Trials wins, which for some reason the Destiny stat tracker websites don't record. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. You gotta believe me on that one. I've also played against streamers, which I know doesn't indicate that I put a lot of time into the game, but it indicates that I know who's involved in the community, and I would argue that I'm also involved in the community. Some of those streamers I played against were Pope Bear, Cheriona, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Blue Westlow, and the Fruit Crew. I think at one point I played against a few Agathalions members that they were world's first in King's Fall. And toward the end of my Destiny 1 career, I was offered money, which I turned down due to moral reasons, to carry people through trials, to boost their accounts on raids, etc. Can't believe I said etc. Now when Destiny 2 was announced, I was largely excited but skeptical about the beta. Since Taken King was my favorite bit of content from Destiny 1 cycle, and Rise of Iron discouraged me. It was a good DLC, but in my opinion it was a step back from Taken King, and I had a feeling that Destiny 2 would be the same. Now, I played the beta day 1 of Destiny 2, and I instantly told my friends from my crew that this game will lose a chunk of its audience due to a few reasons, mainly its vibe on the casual side. The double primary weapon system was also a focus point for me, being a little iffy on its audience base, and the nerfed power fantasy, which they seem to dive into in D1 but really focused on the release of Destiny 2. Upon release, playing through the Destiny 2 story, it had a very friendly and casual vibe which didn't really connect with me in my view of the Destiny universe. Now despite all this, I played every ounce of content from Destiny 2's release up until the release of this video, which is the end of the Season of the Drifter. And despite all this, I still am not too confident about the game. I'm not the Sherpa I once was. I don't play Crucible, as really evident by this gameplay, as well as I used to. And I did take a step into the casual realm, but that could be attributed to time and the fact that this game wasn't as engaging for me. But I feel like if Bungie would take a step back and focus on their priorities in a different way, I could go back to how I was in Destiny 1 and others might join me. Now, with all that story out of the way, what do I mean by regress? Why should Destiny go back in time on a game that many people would argue they've improved since vanilla Destiny 1? Well, they should, in my opinion, keep the current UI and their user convenience features, such as the collections, triumphs, and clans, because in my opinion, that's fantastic features. Very, very good features. But they need to return to the feel of Destiny 1, more specifically Taken King and Rise of Iron. They have tons of story within Destiny 2's life cycle, especially with this last year of DLC, starting with Forsaken. But primarily focused on bringing friends together to get ready for an unforeseeable threat, and I'm mainly focused on the Mars DLC and Panoptes and Osiris. They were a lot of, oh, I have a friend in trouble, and maybe he'll be our friend for a future threat. And that seemed very forced. It seemed like they weren't giving them a full character arc. In my opinion, it just seemed very dry and like a try-hard Disney movie. In my opinion, these storylines split the audience into multiple pools, with the two main ones being the audience that was captivated by their story, that expressed raw emotion, and in my opinion, the majority of the audience that had sarcastic remorse, like, oh no, Panoptes is attacking Osiris. It seems very lame. Now, their story could have been good if they hashed it out better, but it just seems such a different take than what was effective in Destiny 1 that it could be easily viewed in a sarcastic manner. That's not a knack at their story team or their development process. They put a lot of time and effort and love into the game. It's just, I don't know if they were aware of what the community wanted at the time. So what I'm asking for Bungie to do is take a step back and look at the Taken King. Compare that to Gaul, Panoptes, and even Riven, with Riven and Forsaken being arguably the best cycle of content that they've ever released. Now, with Taken King, Oryx is a surprise threat, and I'm not talking about all those dedicated lore masters out there that saw him coming miles away in the dead ghost shells, but talking to the average audience. Now, if you compare that to Gaul, which was also a surprise, Gaul, felt significantly less important than Crota's daddy. One can argue that Gaul was a larger threat in the Destiny universe than Oryx, because he was going to take the Traveler's Light, but Oryx, in my opinion, was more important and impactful. In my opinion, King's Fall was more engaging than the Leviathan raid, which might not be the case after Penumbra releases, due to the Zavala lore stating that Penumbra and the Leviathan could be a teleporter to the Cabal homeworld, but that's a different story. I'm changing the topic with that. But if we're talking about the raid mechanics and the loot drops and even the environment design, my taste focuses on Taken King over Leviathan. And that's an easy decision, including the 2 additional raids on Leviathan as well. Now, for the exotics, the ones that were introduced with the Taken King were better than vanilla Destiny 2. I'm looking at Dark Drinker, but a few other ones there as well. And these exotics contributed to a power fantasy. The story for the Taken King, in my opinion, was more engaging than vanilla Destiny 2, and I would say that Rise of Iron is even more engaging, even though that was weaker than Taken King, again, in my opinion. If you ask any Destiny fan who would win in a fight, Gaul or Oryx, I would argue that most long-term Destiny fans would say Oryx. Oryx would easily beat Gaul, and that's not because of power differences, but that would be because I would say they're more intimidated by Oryx, or they felt like he had a larger impact than the story that Gaul was part of. Also, if I was asked the same Destiny players if they could recall the quest for the Touch of Malice, they would probably get more steps right for that than they would the Legend of Acreus, even though Legend of Acreus was 2 years after, or 2 years closer to this point in time. Which I all attribute to the story. Not that the writing was bad, but it just doesn't have as much community involvement. Now I need to address the elephant in the room. Forsaken and the Drifter. I've touched on this already, but let's just get into it real quick. So, how would Bungie's progress in the last 6 or 8 months need to be regressed? Bungie's taken a massive step in the right direction with the Drifter and with Forsaken. Personally, the base Forsaken story was a little bit weaker than Taken King, if not equal. But when they introduced the Dreaming City and the endgame involved in Forsaken, it put it above Taken King. The Last Wish raid was really good as well. And the loot, in my opinion, is not as good as Vault of Glass or Wrath of the Machine, but it's still a fantastic raid and is the best raid easily in Destiny 2. With the amount of content that that Forsaken introduced, such as Shattered Throne, the raid, the time release strike, and quest lines, it seemed to make Destiny 2 go in the right direction. But with Black Armory and even the Season of the Drifter, Destiny 2 continues to support the idea that history repeats itself, which they've shown throughout Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, which they release something that's generally received positively, and then they release something that's pretty negative and seems to be a step back. Now with Black Armory, it was very lackluster, with the Exotics and the Scourge of the Past raid being the only saving points. I want it to be known that I'm not complaining about content for a game and franchise that I truly love, but it's not what I would imagine they would be releasing after such good content drops. I found that I forced myself to play that game at times, talking about Black Armory. The repetition of completing quests only to unlock a Forge, which is just a small PvP or PvE horde-esque mode that leads to dropping random world weapons, which were already in Destiny 1, felt as if it was 3 months of wasted time. Also, while I mentioned that the Exotics and Scourge were the saving points, I truly did not enjoy Scourge that much, and that's because Destiny 2 has a habit of releasing mini raids, and I haven't been a fan of that. I'd rather have less raids that were longer drawn out than more raids that are shorter. And for the Exotics, I don't use them often, but I put them as a positive point because the Jotun allows those that aren't the best at Crucible or are average at Crucible to have a very high tier weapon that can compete with those with Luna and Not Forgotten. Not saying that they're better than Luna, but they give them a little bit of a competing advantage at times. And with the Season of the Drifter, Bungie expanded on the hit game mode Gambit, which I'm a fan of. And during my time playing Gambit, when Forsaken came out, I've ran with a few top 20 players. Not saying that I'm top 20, but I ran with them. And I've been around the environment. Ignore that sound. I will say, though, that I outplayed it, and that's to my fault. That's totally my bad. And that this opinion might only be from my viewpoint, not yours. I will say, however, that since I outplayed it, this Season of the Drifter seems very old to me. And I'll argue that my crew, my friends who didn't play Gambit nearly as much as I did, could argue the same thing. A lot of them don't play anymore, and those that still do are grinding out the full gear sets just to get the Bungie reward jersey, or there's one or two of them that never played the Season of the Drifter past the first day of release, and they're still trying to unlock the Tier 3. So besides that, there isn't a lot of people playing it. I'll also argue that the exotics that were introduced with Forsaken, or not Forsaken, Season of the Drifter, are pretty lackluster as well. The Hunter and Warlock gauntlets are okay. The Warlock one probably being the best, but I'm a little biased. But the Titan ones aren't the best. Now, don't feel offended if you like the Titan gauntlets, but they're really not that great in terms of the other exotics that are out there and what they could have done. If we're going to talk about Thorn and Last Word, which released with Black Armory, those were good ideas, but in my opinion, they need to be wrapped around the DLC. They seem to be added in addition to the DLC, like a side piece, and that kind of, again, splits the audience. And if they wanted to make impactful DLCs, they should find a way to weave those throwback weapons into the content. So again, if I ask Bungie to regress, what do I mean by that? Well, Bungie, if you're listening, which, if I'm going to be real, they're probably not, please look back at Forsaken and the Taken King. I would rather have a longer and deeper content cycle that are spaced out and cost more too, than content that frequently releases and feels shallow and that isn't engaging and exciting, like Black Armory. Bungie, continue your path of transparency, but reach out to the community more, not just to the lead social media and YouTube influencers, but to the average everyday audience. Maybe consider releasing some sort of survey on the Eververse market that rewards players with Bright Dust, or even take away the Bright Dust reward and offer no reward to encourage those Destiny players that truly want to improve the game with no reward tied to put their input into the game. Bungie, continued your path of releasing previous content and weapons from previous DLCs and Destiny 1. But weave it into the DLC that's currently going on in the current season. Don't make it a side edition. Make every content more significant as well. Stop slowly building up to a massive conclusion. I understand building a story to raise the stakes and build a bigger universe, but most people don't want to watch the slow and non-engaging building of a world for seasons upon seasons for little to no payoff. Now, I'm not counting Season of the Drifter. They're doing that with the Drifter, but they're doing something a little different that I can't quite put my tongue on. And the Season of the Drifter's been the only season in recent memory, besides Forsaken, that the story actually seems to be fun to build. Bungie, I want you to give us a payoff every now and again in terms of the story. And I'm mainly focusing on Ada on this one. Every time I did her quests and I completed her story to make her glow, I felt like I wasted my time. Yay, she can glow now. I know there's story behind it, but they don't make it super clear. And a lot of audience would like some clear story in there. Bungie, I know that you said that you're taking your time with this DLC and not focusing on story. You're going to put some in there, but it's not going to be story-based content. It's going to be based on these events and activities. But please throw us a bone every now and again. Flesh out a storyline to borderline completion. Set up stuff for Destiny 3, but also make us feel like we're completing something to a bigger goal. Let us revel in our triumphs. Now, I would talk about Trials and Crucible as well on here, but this video will go on forever. I played Crucible, as I said previously, a lot, and if I was to talk about that, oh boy, you turn off this video if you haven't already. But if I was to summarize my opinion on that in 3-ish sentences, bring back Destiny 1 Trials in some form. Make it 3v3 elims. Make the rewards competitive. Make the armor and weapon pools equivalent, if not preferably better than the Lighthouse. And do all this while reinstating the current Crucible Pinnacle weapon system that you have going on right now, and Crucible is going to be thriving. So in summary, I just want what's best for the series, and I'll continue to support this franchise no matter what, and that's why I decided to make this video. It's not to attack Bungie, but it was to suggest ideas, and honestly hear your guys' opinions. So that leads into a message for all of you watching this video. Thank you. Seriously. To all of you who have watched this far, and to any of you that might be hearing this, I implore you to leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this current DLC path and Destiny's current feel to the game. You know, maybe I'm right, or probably I'm just going crazy. Let me know what you think about the style of content as well, in terms of what I'm posting. I know this genre is flooded and oversaturated on YouTube, and I doubt this will reach anyone. In fact, there's probably going to be 3 views on this. I don't know. But who knows? It doesn't hurt to try. You know, I've also been reconsidering releasing content. For example, I have a few friends that might be playing Destiny 1 for the first time, and I've been considering releasing full-fledged raid videos of their first experiences. So if you want that, please let me know. Give me your opinion in the comments. Just let me know you watched this video. And I thank all you for listening to me, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Portals up! Go look them in the eyes! Invader down!
Oh, that guy. Oh, man. That's... Okay, I'm saving that.